Let's go ahead and say hello. Miss Backwoods is watching. Hi, Steve. Polly is watching from Barnesville, Minnesota. 86 degrees and beautiful. Getting ready for a wagon train. I'm campfire cooking tomorrow night and making come along coffee. Well, David Pingali's probably real excited to hear that come along coffee is making an appearance at the fire. That's great. Let's see here. And Dave, Miss Backwoods says. Right back at you, Miss Backwoods. Johnson from Sherman Johnson from Johnson Taxidermy, Norman, Oklahoma. 85 degrees with a cold front rolling through. Hey, that's good news for people who like cold news. Randy is watching, 74 degrees and cloudy, Mountain Home, Arkansas. Candy is watching from Indiana, where it is a beautiful day. Christine says, love my Mule Mentor. There we go. We all love ourselves some Mule Mentor, Christine. It's in good company. Julie Stevens is watching from hot 94 degrees somewhere. Miss Backwoods says, Linda and Ryan. Northern Maine, 65 and raining. Julie Stevens says, California.
Yep.
El Senor, California, 94 degrees. There you go, Julie. Kathy's watching from Oregon, where it's 97 degrees today. Anything under 100, I think, is beautiful. Hey, there's Mr. Come Along Coffee, David Pengelly. Coffee by David. It's beautiful here in Manchester, Georgia. We'll see you in Tennessee. He just threatened you, Steve. He says, we will see you in Tennessee. David Pengelly. Yeah. Cinda is watching from Groton, New York. A little rain, which we need, mid-60s. Marsha's watching from Northern California. Overcast or smoky at 96 with a small breeze. Linda the Mule Servant and Theo the Sweet One-Eyed Mule in cool sun shower, Central Ohio. Hey, Rip Stauffer is here watching. Good to have you here, Rip. Rip's watching from, I'm assuming, up north a little bit there. Steve, to start off, I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you've been talking to folks about recently? Have you had any calls and folks have been asking you about this or that, and it's just been on the brain?
Well, I tell you what, I can't find a hat that fits. It's pretty incredible. Matter of fact, I was just talking to a lady in Northern California, and we was talking about cinches and this sort of thing, and I said, well, we don't have any 32s in stock, but I've got 34s. We're only talking about an inch on each side. And she says, Steve, this is what I found. Anytime you say it's going to work, it's going to work. And she says, everything I've used of yours or anything you've told me how to do, it's all worked. So let's just keep on doing it. And I love it when people have taken and tried things and I didn't touch it. I just said, do it like this, and then left them alone. And they're doing it themselves. And that's a lot of fun, you know.
That's awesome. Hey, yeah. Have you spoken with Bradley at all about about a new Molly mule he's got coming, 15 hands, looking for a saddle, 6'3"? Talk to him yet? He sent in a message. He says, my mule is arriving in a few days, and I'd like to start looking for the right saddle and tack. Would be mostly riding trail or trail riding and hopefully some western deer hunting. I believe you when you tell me I need to buy a saddle built for my mule and believe Mr. Edwards can set me up. My mule is an 11-year-old Grula Molly mule that is 15 hands. She's been ridden a lot. I'm 6'3" and go around 210. I'm 69 years old in a couple weeks. 69 years young, Bradley. 69 years young. I look forward to your advice and gear. What would you say for Bradley?
Yeah, I do remember talking to him. I've got his saddle all ready to go. He's going to measure for bits and cinches and stuff. So we got him all set up for a saddle. He's going to be riding a 10-inch saddle. I gave him the instructions where to go in the internet to measure for cinches and to measure for bits. So his mule is supposed to arrive today. And if it arrives the next couple of days, we'll get measured out and we'll get that new saddle going for him.
Now, folks will ask the question, which saddle is best for me? Because you've got like a rancher saddle, you've got a trail rider, you've got the ultralight or the extreme ultralight, you have the heritage. What is the difference? Because I know a lot of folks want to make sure they get the right saddle for the right purpose, Steve.
Yeah. Well, there's basically the saddle. Every saddle has the same tree, same bars, same angles, and this sort of thing. The only difference in any of the saddles at all, as far as looks, is the Rancher compared to the Cowboy, compared to the Trail Light, compared to the Ultralight. They have a 13.5-inch pommel, and it's called a modified association, where the Rancher saddle has a 9-inch pommel and a big horn. It's what it is. It's a Wade slick fork saddle. And Mr. Wade designed this saddle actually in the 1860s for high withered horses. And today, people are riding them because of their looks. Not that they're any different. It's just that they look kind of more cowboy, Anyway.
Giddy up. And well, one of the things you have too is you're real high on the beta material for tack, but you do sell leather, and I've heard you talk about your leathers and old-timey leather, and so it really kind of leans into that looks thing. The beta winds up being a lot more functional and strong and easy to work with, less maintenance, but sometimes people just want the leather look, and you've got that as well. So,
yep. Yeah, the big thing with leather that we have to remember is that it must be ultra oiled. That's really important. With my video that goes with that saddle, that goes with the britch, and I talk in there, and we've got some information about how important it is to soak your leather overnight before you put it on the animal. Unfortunately, a lot of people just put it right on the animal, and then they get the salt from the animal, and it starts getting into the leather, and it starts cracking. Folks, you got to keep that leather super oiled. So in a bucket of oil overnight in leather oil, let it hang up the next day and let it drip and dry into the bucket, and then give it a day or two and then put it on, then ride. And then on top of that, you have to keep it maintained. So every few days, there's nothing wrong with taking a little oily cloth and kind of wiping on the inside, especially any parts that are touching the animal, your bridles and this sort of thing. So that's why I've gone to all beta products. I personally got rid of all my leather harness, leather breeching, breast collars, leather bridles. I got rid of all that 20 years ago plus, 25 years. And I love this beta. There's no maintenance to it. Now, do I have the leather? Yes. Are my breechings completely adjusted different? Yes. Are they designed different? Oh, yeah. A breeching, for me, is completely different than what they have out there on the market.
The other thing, the oil, you use Lexol, right?
Yes, I use Lexol. I think it's really, really important to use that oil simply because it does a good job of not completely staining it, but just oiling it. Now, if you want leather darker, you take and you give it a darker oil, and you oil it a couple, 2 or 3 different times. And the more you oil it, the darker leather gets.
All right. Next question I got. This one was sent in on Facebook by Wayne. He says, I have a standard sized donkey, not miniature or mammoth. Will your rope halter fit correctly? Also, does your mule ground foundation starting kit apply to donkeys as well?
Yes, everything that I do with the mule, you can apply to the donkey. You have to remember, though, the donkey is sullen. By the time you think he's not getting it, a week later, he'll show you how to do it. Donkeys are great. But yes, absolutely. The ground communication tool is excellent. Now, I can tell you, folks, get this. I have trained camels with that come along rope, doing identical the same thing as you see me do with that mule. I have done Zorses. I have done Zonkies. And what that is a horse that's bred with a zebra and a donkey bred with the zebra, Zorse and Zonky. And I've trained with them on there. And I have trained cattle. Yes, cattle. I have not put it on a pig yet because you have to really use a stick for a pig. But cattle, you betcha. We've tied cattle overnight to a tree and come back the next day after they thought they needed to fight us. They can't fight the tree no more. So we dally up, take them on out, and away we go. Now, your young steers, your 4-H steers and heifers, you can train them really nice. That come along hitch does great for that.
Next question comes in from Cody over on Facebook. I'm looking for a bit for my hunting mule to ride in the mountains of the northwest Arkansas to make sure I have control for whatever needs to be. Lots of night hunting. Wanted to know which of your bits you would recommend. What would you say, Steve?
Well, okay, so here's the thing, Cody. When it comes down to bits, if you were to say to me, Steve, my mule side passes, turn on the forehand, turn on the hindquarters, I can ride it with one hand. It stops on a light rein. Then I could say, Cody, your mule is full-fledged, has a decent foundation, and yes, you could use my Trail Rider bit. If you tell me, Steve, I have to steer with two hands and I don't side pass, turn on forehand, turn on hindquarters, then it's imperative we have to build a foundation. And I use my Mule Riders Martingale so that I get a headset, so I get them balanced and framed up. It comes complete with the bit, the bridle, the how-to video, and the martingale set up for the adjustment. And what this amounts to is this: mules, donkeys do not care about their mouth. They don't. Man, they can take that bit. Matter of fact, I was talking to a young girl the other day, 15 years old, and her parents were listening in, of course, and answering questions. But she said, my donkey, when I go to lead it, if it wants to go off the left, it just goes. It drags me. And she says it does the same thing in the saddle. Yes, yes, and yes. Everything that you get on the ground, it will end up being the same thing that you have in the saddle. Identical. So that's why you build a ground foundation first. So what would I say for you to do? Answer that question. Can you side pass, turn on the forehand, turn on the hindquarters? Or do you not do that and you have to guide everything with two hands? So answer that question and I can answer that for you. If you want to call me, I'd be happy to visit with you as well.
Awesome. Next question I've got comes in from Carrie. Says, I'm looking for a younger green mule on the west coast side of the country. I'm in California. Do you recommend anyone in Arizona and west of there? Now, Carrie, we do not make recommendations. And when I say we, I mean Steve, because Lord knows you don't want me making a recommendation of any type for mules, donkeys, horses, or otherwise. But Steve doesn't do recommendations, and for a variety of reasons. Foremost being he doesn't know the mule, hasn't spent time with the mule, hasn't interacted with the mule. And so when it comes to where to buy one, there's all sorts of different places that you can buy one. All of that said, Steve, what is some direction that we can give Carrie? I'm going to give her a link to the article, Craigslist, how to buy a mule on Craigslist or over auction. What advice would you give to Carrie as Carrie's looking for a green mule?
Yeah, well, hey, Carrie, congratulations on getting a green mule. I'm going to tell you, even most of the mules out there that are supposed to be well trained, they're just as green as a gourd anyway. So, if they don't turn on the forehand, turn on the hindquarters, light back up in a 10-foot circle, they don't have a foundation. Just because they've been in the mountains, just because they cross rivers, just because they've gone up highways, does not mean anything. All right, so let's go on. What everybody needs to be done is get education. Watch everybody's video. See who works for you. See which one is the best video to be able to meet your needs and the best trainer. Okay, and you might take a piece here, a piece there, and do whatever. But the consistency of a foundation is really important. So with your mule, the first thing I would strongly suggest you do is get education. And folks, I'm going to tell you, unfortunately, the stories that I hear of people that have purchased mules online and then had them delivered, it's rarely a good picture. It usually ends up being a very bad picture. So anyway, there you are. I hope you do good catching, finding a mule. They're out there, a lot of them. And just because they call them broke, most of them are green.
Yep. Next question comes in from Diane. Diane says, hey, Steve and Dave, I have a chance to buy an 18-year-old draft mule from a trail riding stable that they are retiring here in my state. What are your thoughts? Yes, I did ride her and was fantastic. So we've got a situation here, Steve, where Diane has experience with the mule, albeit she rode her, so I'm not sure to what extent. This is a draft mule from a trail riding stable that's retiring. Anything that you would warn, caution, or tell Diane to look for?
Diane, I always tell people riding is not the important thing. It's not, okay? And with everybody, they just want to climb on and ride and say, oh boy, we're doing good. No, no, no. Are you picking up all 4 feet? Are you catching them in the corral? Are you saddling them? Are you cleaning them up and things like this, okay, once you get that far, next step is go and get a vet check. Make sure the mule is sound all the way around. Now, folks, I hear this story all the time. We're retiring this mule. Yeah, here's the problem, folks. These mules keep on going for years. My wife's mule was 28 when she finally passed away, and we used to ride up to the first day. Okay, so here's what I want to tell you. Riding is not the important part. What's the important part is this, is that you watch the other person catch them, pick up all 4 feet, watch how they walk and they lead, watch how the person works with the mule, and go from there. I'm always skeptical about somebody that says, I need younger mules in my stock, or the mule's too old. Listen, you get a good old babysitter, they are worth their weight in gold. Get your vet check done and go from there. And again, folks, riding's not the important part. It's not, okay? If you're riding and you're saying to yourself, by golly, your ride's good. Well, what about picking up the feet? What about putting a halter on? What about catching them? Check on all that stuff.
Next question. This one comes in from Wade over on YouTube. And one of the things we've talked a lot about over the years, it just keeps coming up, is hennies. Now, Steve, real quick, for folks who are watching that don't know, what is a henny?
Okay. A henny is this. The daddy was the horse. The mother was the donkey. That makes a henny. Can you look at 2 animals together and say one's a henny and the other one is a solid mule? No. There's no looking at them. There's no smelling them. The only way that you can tell, is a DNA test. That's an A. That's the only way. You cannot just look at a head and say, oh, it's got a small head like a horse. No. Oh, it's got a back like a donkey. No, it's not that. It's not confirmation. It's not the way they go. It's not who's stronger and who's weaker. That's not the way to tell. Only way is the DNA test. That's the only way. It's not that important.
Okay. So Wade sent this and says, I haven't heard you say anything about this, so I don't know if it's a myth or if it's something new. Here we go. Hennies will not have a chestnut on their back legs. Mules do, but are very small. I've always been told this and have seen this phenomenon, but it may not be consistent. Have you heard this before?
I've heard it, and I can tell you I've seen some mules with chestnuts, some without. I don't think it makes 2 nickels worth of difference. I've had people tell me about the swirl in the middle of the head, about the different things with that, but no, I've seen it both ways. And I can tell you that I've actually owned mules that I knew the mother and the father, and they did or did not have a chestnut. It doesn't make any difference. The only way you can tell is the DNA.
All right, next question comes in from Marcia. Says, I just thought of a question. Do mules hate baths? My 2 love the creek, rain, and of course the mud, but hate the hose. My mule friend who used to show mules said they hate baths. My horses loved it, even not being forced on them. True or not?
Well, I've seen some mules just love it and other mules just hate it. I don't think there's any one thing that points toward hating it or loving it. It just all depends on the disposition of the mule or donkey.
Awesome. Very fun, Marcia. Thank you. Well, let's hop back over to see who else is hanging out with us. Rip says it's dark clouds and may rain. Yeah, I'm hoping those dark clouds come down here and make it may rain down here. Fiona, hey, Fiona's watching from Southwest Victoria, Australia. So that means we've gone international. A blustery 10 degrees Celsius, wind speeds of 70 kilometers per KMS. How do you measure wind? See, this is just ignorant American right here. KMS, what, kilometers?
I would think so. I don't
Kilometers
know.
per second?
Yeah.
Something like that. Help me out, Fiona. Help me out. I went to public school. I need a little bit of help here. Barbara's watching from Sullivan, Missouri, 82 degrees and sunny. Tamara is watching from Australia. It took me a second because I said Tamar and Tamara. I got it wrong last time, and now I'm getting it wrong again. Well, she's watching from Australia, beautiful and sunny here in Peoria near Casino in the New South Wales. There we go. Good to have you here. Ross is watching from Emmett, Idaho, 104. Mike A, number 5627, is watching from Brownwood, Texas, 104. Send some rain. Enjoy the info. Sending rain. Steve Brady, Delta, Colorado, 90 degrees. Could you show and demonstrate the Arizona Cinch sometime? And you know what, Steve? I don't think we have a video on you installing the Arizona Cinch.
Yeah, we need to do that sometime. As a matter of fact, when I don't know if I got one up there in Montana or not, but I've talked about that for a long time.
Yeah.
We actually had. I think I have to look. I think I have to look at my packing video. I think it's on there, but I'll have to look at my packing video. I've often talked about having that cinch set up where people can look at it, and that's probably something I should be doing.
Matt is watching from Chalice, Idaho, 95 degrees, blue skies with a smoky haze due to forest fires. Stay safe, Matt. Lamar is watching. Hey guys, Lamar watching, 93 degrees, sunny, Price, Utah. Pat is watching from Upland, Indiana, 80 and sunny. David O'Brien, one of our fans on YouTube as well, just replied to you on a video, David. Hi from East Texas, great to see y'all, 95 and humid. Hannah is watching from Dunedin, Florida, 87 degrees and cloudy. Trace is watching from Lowood, Queensland, Australia, 35.6 here this morning. Lovely sunny day ahead. Gone international. Wayne says, howdy, boots from Georgia, hot, humid, fixin' to rain. Oh, that should be a country song right there. It is hot and it's humid and it's fixin' to rain. Kilometers, Fiona says, just really windy. Thank you, Fiona. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Grace. Rory is watching from southwestern Ohio. Beautiful to get today and 80 degrees. Laurel is watching Le Sueur, Minnesota. Beautiful and 80. And we've got a question from Linda. Question and info. Learned a new thing about equine vision. Their vision is different from ours, not just due to eye placement, but because the internal structure of the eyeball is different. Without turning their head, they can see 350 degrees. But that famous word, that means my mule that's missing an eye has lost 175 degrees of vision. Steve, thoughts about differences between a mule born with an eye, like Theo, and Debbie's mule, who was recently blinded?
Yeah, well, there's nothing easy about working with these animals, and it makes it even tougher when they don't have both eyes where they can use both brains. That's really important. So I wish I could tell you there's all kinds of good news, but them things do happen. They do lose eyes and stuff. We had a one-eyed mule at Grand Canyon for quite a while. And then I also had a couple of rancher buddies with one-eyed horses. And it was amazing what they can do. You just have to be consistent and be patient.
All right, next question comes in from PH over on YouTube. Rescued a 20-year-old mule. She is scared, freaked out. I've been patient, not forcing. I go in her pen every day. I do maintenance, cleaning, feeding, talking, visiting. I have 2 donkeys who continue to be in my way because they're friendly. I thought by seeing me interact with the donkeys, she would eventually begin to trust me. So any help, suggestions, or recommendations of videos to watch would be much appreciated.
Yeah. Well, number one, folks, you hear me say all the time, do not put your mules in with the other animals. Because here's the deal. You're a predator. They're a prey animal. Okay? They're a prey animal. So when you put another equine with another equine, sure, they're going to get along. One's going to want to try to be the top of the pecking order, and the other one's going to fuss with them a little bit about it. And finally, somebody is going to be the head of the herd. So it's best to get them out and take the two donkeys out, because they are going to interfere with your communication with your mule. Now, the other thing you want to do is make sure of your feeding program, because feed makes a tremendous difference in the mental stability of a mule and a donkey too, as far as that goes. So I strongly suggest get them out. Always keep your mules in a small pen. 20 by 20 is my suggestion. And then you'll be able to communicate and work with them a whole lot easier.
Got another question. This one came from Linda on YouTube. My mule always lets me trim her ears. Now all of a sudden she will not let me touch her ear. Hard to get a fly mask or anything on her. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, well, there's and that does happen. I don't trim their ears, folks. I leave them alone. If I'm going to do anything at all, I'll kind of close the ear a little bit. You know how they're kind of open. I'll kind of close the ear some, and then I'll go right down the edge of it. That's all I do. Don't do the inside deep. That hair gets in there and it pesters them, makes them unhappy. So here's what I would do if I was going to do it. I would start teaching to twitch. And folks, I twitch. I train any mules I train. They learn how to be twitched. It's my natural way to be able to create natural endorphins. It's not a matter of pain. It's creating natural endorphins so that they'll relax so that I can do my work. Now, I can tell you that I just had one of my clients contact me last week. They actually overdosed his mule, and the mule actually died. Now, yeah, that can happen. Yes, it can happen. But folks don't seem to understand the difference in that mule because of the hybrid and because of the donkey side of it. So this happened to overdose. And of course, they didn't completely come right out and say, yeah, that's what it was. But they say it's a good possibility. And I say, yep, you're exactly right. So it's, the drugs are okay. Talk to your vet, spend time with the vet, But I'm going to tell you, you'll see the videos and you'll see how quiet the mule gets or how quiet the donkey gets. And you can do any kind of work you want to do, and you'll be able to do the ears.
Next question. This one comes from Ken. He says, I was curious, do you guys ever sell or have used saddles? The current market for mule saddles is astronomical. I've been following your methods and teaching for a while. I want to make sure I don't ruin my mule with a horse saddle, so I figured I would reach out and see if you have any leads or have old users' saddles that you would be interested in selling. I'm located in Tucson for reference. So number one, we don't have used saddles. I might be able to think, if I really tried hard, to think of one instance over the last 10 years that I recall where somehow you came across one, Steve. But usually what will happen is Steve might hear of one and we'll mention it here if we know of one. And that's about it. But with that said, I thought this was a good opportunity to do two things, Steve. Number one, to say, if you do find a used saddle, take pictures of it and send it to Steve before you purchase to make sure that it is one of his saddles, because a mule saddle is not a Steve Edwards saddle. They're different. Just because someone says it's a mule saddle does not mean it's a Steve Edwards saddle. So you need to take a picture, number one, to verify it's one of Steve's, and number two, to make sure that no modifications have been done. Because if a modification has been done to the saddle, it's not going to function the way that it's supposed to. The second thing was just to give you an opportunity to talk real quick, Steve, about what is that difference. Because he's saying here, I follow your methods and teaching. I don't want to ruin with a horse saddle. Well, lots of folks don't see that it would actually be ruining. Why could it ruin the mule or the donkey with a horse saddle?
Well, simply because of the way the saddle is made. Rigging plates in the wrong place, skirting sometimes is square rather than rounded. And folks always are asking me what's best rigging. 3/4. This is the front rigging plate. 3/4, 7/8, or 3/4. Full rig, 7/8, or 3/4. And my answer is that front cinch isn't important. It's not. My front cinch is kind of between the two of 7/8 and 3/4. But I'm going to tell you again, do not over tighten that front cinch, and don't depend on that front cinch. So what's the other thing is, when I have people buy a saddle from me, I tell everybody, get the saddle. It is lightly oiled, very lightly. One of the reasons is because of shipping, because if I ship it and the oil gets to creating a residue and comes outside the box, the shippers are not very happy, and a lot of times they'll hold an order right there. So that's why the majority of us do not send out heavily oiled equipment. So let's go back. When I tell people to take a spray bottle with soap in it. I like to use Dawn soap, maybe a tablespoon or so in a spray bottle, shake it up real good, spray the back half of the fenders underneath the jockey, turn them, shape them, and then when they get ready to ride, spray them again. They get ready to ride, spray them again. You could go over a couple of years as far as that goes, and wet them and ride until you finally say to yourself, okay, this is about what I like right here. This is about right. So, what I said all that to say this is, now that person has shaped the saddle to them. Once it's shaped and then they oil it, once you oil it, it is really super difficult to train that leather again. Very, very difficult. It usually has to be very old and not oiled much in order to do it. So there's the downside. You'll end up getting a saddle that you're having difficulty with because it has been shaped to that particular person. So going back to the saddles, no, and do I have a store open to the public? I do not. I have a lot of people, Dave, and that are right here in Arizona. They want to come out, see the store, and sit in the saddle. I do not have time for folks to come out and sit in the saddle. Much as I would love to have time and do it, I just don't. And even now, even when I'm retired, I've got less time now than I ever had.
I can vouch for that. Very, very busy. Wayne asks, we are building a 3/4 scale stagecoach, and I have several donkeys but no mules. I have read that a full-size donkey can pull twice his body weight on flat ground. Would it overwork a pair of donkeys to pull a small stagecoach with 4 riders on a hard-packed dirt road? I am estimating the donkeys weigh approximately 400 to 450 pounds each, and the coach will weigh around 400.
Yeah, that's going to be way too much weight for them donkeys. Here's the thing, folks. It's not so much their size, but they have tendons on the back of their legs, and you can bow those really easy. Or you can mess up a flexor tendon as well. If you're going to drive on a stagecoach, that size of a coach, that kind of weight, I would use 4 donkeys, and 6 would be better. Far better. Driving 6 up is a lot of fun. If I was going to put 2 donkeys on something, I'd probably put them on a buggy, which don't weigh next to nothing. But when you put 400 pounds of people in a saddle, in a wagon, and then try to get them pull it along with another 400, 500, 600 pounds of weight, that's a lot for them donkeys. No, I wouldn't do it.
Hopping back over to everyone who's hanging out with us, we've got Paula watching from South Carolina. Hannah is watching, says, TMJ was when my mule would not let his ears be touched. Dentist fixed the problem in a few minutes. So, yeah, the teeth are super, super important. I didn't understand that. Early on, they'd be talking about all these problems. They'd be like, get the teeth floated. Have the wolf tooth pulled, or all these different things. And I was like, what does the teeth have to do with the back, or with it putting its head down or whatnot? And so Steve explained just the way that the teeth would move, and how the head, when it goes down, the mouth would adjust, and it causes all these other problems. I was like, oh, okay. So, makes sense. And so what Hannah's saying, we hear lots and lots of people saying, just because it's true. Daryl's watching with Bobby Joe in Dallas, Texas, where it's sunny and 104. Tina is watching from Yucca, Arizona, and it's a 104 here. I'm loving the come-along rope I just got. Love hearing that. Miss Backwood says, if two people are going to ride a mule, would you recommend them getting separate saddles for each rider?
Oh, my goodness. Yes and no. Okay. Here's again the thing, folks, is each rider rides a little bit different. Sometimes we have a little bit of a hip problem, a little bit of a knee problem, things like that. And a lady does ride different than a man because their pelvis sets them different. And here's the downside. Us guys, we tend to slouch. So the saddle is going to be fitting you. Here's what we have to consider. We want the saddle to fit the rider so that it makes it comfortable for the mule. You set too far back, you're putting pressure back there on them kidneys and this sort of thing from too big of a saddle. Too small of a saddle, you end up being forward, you end up putting pressure in the scapula area. So yes, you want to have the saddle fit you so that you got a happy mule.
All right. Let's see here. Cowboy Ken is watching. Hello, guys. Sorry I'm late. Lori is watching from Florida near Ocala. Lisa is watching from Conneaut Lake, Pennsylvania. Kind of cooling off. I have to leave in a few for Ears Acres and then come home and can veg. Just wanted to drop in and say hello and thanks. Good to have you here, Lisa. Thank you so much. Hey, Eileen is here. Joined very late. Sunny and humid in Nebraska. Yeah, Eileen, that's really, really late. We're going to have to do something about that. Let's see here. I thought I had another question, and now I cannot find it. Oh, this is what I was going to talk to you about. So I was going through comments on YouTube, and inevitably, we've got comments from people just saying, hey, this is abuse. Hey, don't pull on that rope. Hey, I will go up to them. I don't need to pull on a rope. I use treats. Hey, I wouldn't train my mule this way. It's all these different things. Just gave me or said, hey, there's no need to kick. Here's what it is. There's no need to kick a mule in the leg. I'm sure you don't want to be kicked by that mule. So, Steve, I just thought this was a good opportunity to talk a little bit about the differences between people and animals. And then even to talk about the differences between animals and animals, meaning equine dogs, equine cats. Help us understand just a little bit about why why it's okay to pull, or what you're trying to do, I guess you could say, when you're asking, telling, demanding, kicking on the feet. Where does that signal come that that's what's going to communicate to the mule?
Okay, so we go back to the herd mentality. The mare, she pins her ears and she says to the new mule wanting to come into the herd, don't come no closer. Slow down. And the mule keeps on coming. Well, she asked, now she's telling, she pins her ears, swishes her tail, and she just told him. She asked, now she told, now what's the next part? She spins and kicks, demands. Giving treats is going to end up getting you hurt. I can tell you about clients that have one lady thought it was really good to put a carrot in her pocket and to get a carrot. One day the carrot wasn't there. The breast was. She ended up having a breast surgery. And it's no fun, folks, when one gets a hold of you and starts swinging you around trying to get that treat. Now, the next thing, I had one lady who was missing a finger right about here at this joint. And she didn't probably weigh 90 pounds. She had a great big Clydesdale, and she was at a show. And I always took my students from Pierce College. We went to classes, to horse shows to watch how people interact. And she had reached up one day to pet her horse on the nose. He thought it was a carrot. He grabbed a hold of her finger and took that 90-pound body, flipped it around, and actually pulled the end of the finger off. So treats, don't get it. If you want to get yourself bit, you want to get yourself kicked, you'll get it with treats, because if you don't have them, they'll get you. I've seen people on the internet giving treats, and see them literally get mauled from their donkeys and their horses and stuff. Treats are what? For dogs and, yep, for cats. Yep, they're a predator. Your horse, your mule, your donkey is a prey animal. They don't need that. They need you to be a leader. Ask, tell, demand. So the kicking in the shin, that's no big deal. That's nothing. That low tap there don't mean nothing. And I have tapped a lot of people on the leg because they said, oh, that really hurts. No, get a feel for it. And I tap them, they go, oh, that's not so bad, okay? And can you take another horse or another mule spinning and kicking you? No. Can that mule? Yes. Can that horse or that donkey? Yes. But you and I can't take it. No, we can't. So your little bit of tap or your little bit of a bounce on the lead rope is nothing compared to being bit by an equine or being kicked by an equine. You have to learn to be assertive. I have watched people use all kinds of treats and different gigs for that, and finally end up with trouble and big problems, and they've got themselves hurt. So what I do here is very humane. What I do here is very natural, extremely natural. As soon as you put your hand on them, you are being unnatural. You're a predator on a prey animal. So when it comes down to it, act like a mule, act like a horse, act like a donkey, okay? And when you do that correctly, then you'll work good. So there's 5 communication skills, 5 of them you want to use. Ask, tell, demand. We just talked about that. The other 2, comfortable, uncomfortable. You'll see it all the time. You'll see it all the time with a herd leader. When they're getting ready to go, they pick up and start going off. And I've seen them actually get after other animals because they didn't go right when they wanted them to. So, I am being exactly correct when it comes down to natural way of training.
Very good. Thank you. Next question here. This one comes in from Laurel. Says, Steve, I had a question. My boyfriend purchased a Mule 14-2. He is part Appaloosa, slender built. He was told when he starts riding he will need to give the mule several breaks. He weighs about 220. What are your thoughts? Steve, what is an Appaloosa? And then what are your thoughts regarding Laurel's question?
Well, an Appaloosa is simply a horse that his rump has a white color to it with different spots on it, okay? Or you can get a leopard Appaloosa where the whole animal is white with spots all over that. So it's just a blanket or a complete animal. 120 pounds, that's very acceptable. Again, like anything else, you want to prepare the animal for a trip. You're going to be doing a long time in the saddle. You want to physically get the animal ready to go on the trip. And so that's what's important. Short bursts, sure. Can you do long bursts? Yes. You just have to watch for that sweat behind the ears. When you start sweating behind the ears, you start seeing a lot of sweat there, the mule's starting to overheat. So that'll give you a general idea.
Awesome. Next question comes from Coy. I just bought a mule and he won't let me catch him. I'd like to know some tips so I can be able to work on that, and he's really flighty. What would you say for Coy?
Well, Coy, first thing I tell people, everybody, is when you get them home, put them in a 20 by 20 pen, 20 by 20. That way you can control their feed, their water, and catching them and this sort of thing. Now, I do very little round pin work. The only time that I really use a round pin consistently is one that's hard to catch. And then I don't do the round pinning like everybody else. Okay, I do it completely different. I would prefer to get the come along rope on them and build a foundation that way rather than doing any kind of round pin work, because people do it incorrect. So you're standing at the shoulder, you're nice and quiet, and the mule is moving off. And as you move with the shoulder, as it's going around, you step to the nose, they stop. Step back to the shoulder, the neutral zone, you walk toward them. If they take off, you run them off. So, okay, if you want to go, run, go, okay? But don't run them and 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 run. Don't do that. It's not important. It's important that you catch them more mentally than you do physically. So when you step to the nose and they stop and you start walking toward the shoulder, you want to watch for this. If they're looking at you, they're saying, come on, visiting hours are on. If they don't look at you, visiting hours aren't open, don't come. So therefore, don't go. When they're looking at you, the invitation's on, and that's something you got to consider. So as soon as you can, put a come along rope on them and do your foundational training, but keep them in a small 20 by 20 pin. And there's nothing wrong with that, folks. Listen, my wife's mule at 28 years old, and some of my other mules that we had as well, she spent 28 years. She was 28 years old. We got her when she was 2, and she spent 26 years in a 10 by 20 stall. Now, there was times, we pulled out a panel. She'd have a 20 by 20, but folks, they'll do just fine in a small pen. They don't need a big arena, a big corral, a big round pen. They don't need that.
Next question comes in from Melody. Says, I have a 3-year-old, and I'm assuming she means a mule or a donkey, that when I do this training of trying to teach him to back up, she will not move back. Any more suggestions? So, Steve, it's the training where you've got the come along rope. Matter of fact, let me see if I can bring it up here. Let's see if I can do that. Bring this up here. Show a little bit of training. All right, and then let's go here. Okay, can you see that, Steve?
Yep, there we are.
All right.
Okay, so you see my hand. When the mule didn't pay attention to me, I give him a little bump. Now watch. 1, 2, right, left. And the mule went. Okay, now 1, 2, right, left, and the mule went. You notice how I'm going right, left. Now I'm asking by going right, left. And you notice right now I'm pointing toward the mule with my hand. Normally, I never tell you to do that. I usually say, have it come from the top of your finger and underneath your hand. But notice it's going right, left. Now, right now, I'm using a halter, and that's what you all are seeing. Before this, I used a come-along rope to be able to create this backing up. So you have to use the come-along rope to start with and shake it right, left. And then as you advance, you'll be right where this mule is here with an adjusted halter. This mule first had the come-along hitch on it. So it's right, left. It doesn't work. I get my hand on it. I bump down, bump, 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 bump. And will they eventually go? Yes. Always wear gloves, but it's got to be your timing, folks. It's usually the biggest problem with ground foundation, Dave, is timing.
So something about that is I learned this, y'all. I was asking Steve, I was like, hey, why is it that when the animal when you want him to back up, why are you pulling down? I was like, why are you doing that? He said, well, it puts pressure on the top of the nose and they want to get rid of that. And so they want to back up. So I just couldn't understand the physics and the angle of it. But as soon as he said that, it made sense. So the swinging, so the really cool thing is once you get them trained to respond to the come along rope, and what's really cool is just the slightest bit of pressure. Like we're talking slight. We're talking like barely picking up on the lead rope. They will respond. They'll go one way or the other because it's the slightest bit of pressure. And so what's really cool is, all you have to do is just barely move your hand and they'll do the thing. And like you see it when you've had time to work with them and you do it in the right order and you do it in the proper manner, like you'll see it winds up working. It's very, very cool. Question from, let's see here. Garden Lady says, love your training methods. Was surprised to discover that my mother uses the same methods you do to train her horses. So very cool right there. Let's see. One of our friends over on YouTube, McKay Kate, maybe, questions about fly control. I have a donkey that is getting bad summer sores after every possible prevention. Fly predators, fly inhibitors, fly boots. Would this be an Espana silk thing, Steve?
Yep. Yep. And you have to start doing it, folks, in the very beginning of the year before the season comes on, because the animal is definitely got an allergic value to the fly bites. And so some of them, like I was talking to a person the other day, they actually have it around the navel of the animal. And it's in a variety of places. But the strong thing I would say is contact them at Espana Silk, and they'll get you the right product. Tell them that I sent you, and it'll change everything, especially next year. Fix it before it becomes a problem.
Let's see here. Linda says, how can we help respond to silly people who write in and call Steve's techniques abusive? Theo never gets treats. His default behavior is attentive and obedient, but if he smells a treat, he can't think of anything else. Now, I don't remember if I told you this or not, Steve. I might have just said I'm not even going to bother you with it. I think it was on YouTube. It might have been Facebook. It was one of those two, and it was like 3 years ago, maybe. We got a strike. There had been somebody who had been reporting our videos as animal abuse. And so I had an opportunity to respond to those animal comments, respond to the comments about animal abuse. And what I wound up sharing was basically what I've heard you say, Steve, just like, hey, folks mean well. You got a lot of folks who really, they just appreciate animals. Animals are incredible. And their experience with livestock is just not as vast as their experience with domesticated animals and in-home animals and, you know, small reptiles and things like this. The truth is that if you don't have a clear plan going in, and if you don't take cues from the herd and the herd's behavior, anything other than what we're teaching is going to wind up causing all sorts of problems, if not immediately, then in the future. And so the people who are making comments, they're just misunderstanding, and they just don't have the experience or the know-how to make a comment. And I think it was YouTube, because YouTube does the strikes. They removed the strike and they let our, videos keep going. But I was pleased to say that got me asking Steve questions about abuse, because what happens now is when people make comments on our YouTube channel, what I said to this lady, I don't know if I still got it up here. What I said to the lady who made this comment, no, it's already gone. I basically said, hey, thanks for watching. Here is our response to your question. We may not see eye to eye, but hopefully you can appreciate that we're willing to have the conversation. And that's really what we do, Linda. And for anybody who's watching, is we don't really go after anybody or, try to overwhelm them with other comments. Occasionally I've done that just because it was needed. But usually it's just like, hey, we're willing to have a conversation about it. And most of the time when you say you're willing to have a conversation, the other people aren't willing to have a conversation. They kind of want to just say their 2 cents and move on. And that's kind of the nature of the keyboard warrior. It's easy to do stuff when you're not seen, but the second you see them and say, we'll have a conversation, they tend to go away. So I appreciate that, Linda. And if we ever need that, I'll be sure to let you know. But find that if you just talk to them, they tend to go away. Let's see here. Miss Backwood says, what does it mean when I call my mule and she turns her rear end towards me? I'm not going to make any jokes. Steve, what does that mean?
Well, it can mean I'm going to kick your head off. Most of the time it means somebody scratched my butt in the past, and I like it, and I like to have some more. And I have seen a lot of that.
So there you go, Miss Backwoods. Mr. 40TT says, hello from Dushney, Utah. Hot as the Dickens as I watch you with Gus the Mule. Hey, good to have you here. Grandpa Ted, I think Grandpa Ted is with Gus the Mule there. Jim is watching from Central Alabama, where it's overcast and 75. Hey, Misty is here from Signal Mountain, Tennessee. Perfect evening, 75 and sunny. I have been on the horses and not the mule, Steve. but I will get you more picks soon. Thank you so much for always being so willing to help. You're so gracious and wonderful. You know, Steve said earlier that he can't find a hat that fits. It might be because of you people. That might be the problem right there. Julie says, I feed garlic daily starting at the beginning of the summer. It has been helpful. Is it possible to share the spelling of Steve's product? Yes. Espana. It's I'll type it in here again, Misty. ESPA, squiggly mark N, then A, silk.
Espana.
So then I got the link in there for you too, Misty. Julie, you'll be able to get it from there. Let's see here. Linda says, turns her rear end towards me. Means the same thing as if I do it. Yeah, right? Kiss this. Roger, Milan, New York is watching. Rory says, had a Mustang that would back into anyone for a butt scratch. Took me a long time to trust him. And with that, that's the end of this week's show. Butt scratches. Folks, thanks so much for hanging out with us. It was good to be back with y'all. It's always a good time to spend a few minutes together. There's so much out in this world that it just isn't worth your time. It isn't worth your attention. Trying to distract you, trying to produce confusion and chaos. I sure do hope that by spending just a few minutes with us on a Wednesday, you can get away from that distraction, get away from that chaos, and get some real clarity over something that I'm hoping it brings a lot of fun and enjoyment to you, get you some results, hopefully, and we'll guide you the way. So there's really 4 postures our comments take. It could be free, or it might be paid. It might be simple. It might require a lot of work, but it might be a combination of those 4. No matter which one it is, we're going to be straight with you. We're going to tell it to you, and then we'll share with you the results that other people get so you can make a decision for you. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.